want you to think about if there's ever been a time in your life where you had to speak up to be heard, and that your values weren't listened to.
I'm actually really disappointed right now in our community. I'm very disappointed in our community. I want to say that my approach will be notably different in this new era for the city of Flagstaff.
Maybe we have the progressive, forward-thinking, social justice-minded group of community leaders to make a real difference.
Seems like I have a lot of tough choices to make.
I would go back to the 1950s when we had 7,000 people here, and most of the people in this room would not be here, and that would be okay with me.
Increasing the inventory of available affordable rentals in town was one of the priority goals set by City Council earlier this year. And while several means of accomplishing this were discussed, the city's housing division came up with a plan to inventory available city-owned parcels, then put out a request for proposal to potential developers to develop affordable housing units on those parcels. Furthermore, there's a bit of a time crunch involved, as the most likely source of funding is the federal low-income housing tax credit, which can be very competitive and comes with strict deadlines. However, once again, we seem to have kicked over another hornet's nest, as the inclusion of one of the available open space parcels has stirred much controversy. Right now, we have one of the most ideologically driven city councils in recent memory, elected officials that will put their good intentions ahead of pragmatism and common sense. And in this episode, I'd like to use the controversy surrounding Schultz Meadows as a way to examine whether or not such an ideological council can not only achieve their stated goals, but actually help anyone. Along the way, I'd also like to address what I think is one of the greatest acts of hypocrisy by some in our community. Flagstaff does indeed have a shortage of affordable homes and rentals. And right now the hope is, with so much student housing under construction in our college town, that supply will increase and ease demand in the coming months for the rest of us. Another idea to ease demand is to build affordable housing on city-owned land and restrict occupancy to those who meet certain income requirements. The plan put forward by our housing division identified these 3 parcels to be combined into an RFP submitted to nonprofit and private developers. Staff would then review those proposals and recommend the best one for approval by City Council. The winning developer could then apply for a fiercely competitive federal low-income housing tax credit to fund the development of the project. So the original 3 parcels are spread throughout town, and all combined total about 5 acres of usable land, which would yield a few dozen new units, depending on which concept plan the city chooses. However, one parcel, known as Schultz Meadows, is a beloved scenic view of the San Francisco peaks and a popular spot to take pictures on special occasions, especially in the summer when the sunflowers are in bloom. Many in the community were shocked that such an iconic piece of open space would even be considered for development of any kind, and even more shocked to learn of some of its forgotten history. In 2005, Schultz Meadows and another piece of land across the street were purchased and annexed by the city as part of a development agreement with Big Corner LLC. Big Corner agreed to develop Parcel A on the east side of the street as a market-rate subdivision of single-family homes, and sell Parcel B, also known as Schultz Meadows, to the city. Per the requirements of the development agreement, Schultz Meadows was to be utilized for workforce housing, and was rezoned by the City Council. Furthermore, the city reimbursed Big Corner for the cost of extending utilities across Highway 180 to Schultz Meadows to serve both parcels of land, presumably using money from the housing budget, since workforce housing was intended to be built there. Even in 2005, there was some opposition to building anything on this parcel, and the same arguments were made. The traffic, prairie dogs, the views, the sunflowers, open space. Big Corner eventually did develop Parcel A into 22 single-family homes, but the 2008 financial crisis preempted development on Schultz Meadows as funding sources dried up, so this little triangle remained untouched and largely forgotten until this year. It's really curious why Schultz Meadows would ever be considered for development of any kind, much less affordable housing. It's on the far northern edge of town, the least walkable part of town, away from most schools, shopping, and services. The only bus line that runs through the neighborhood stops just once an hour. And we found out that maybe the money to purchase and improve the land didn't come from the housing budget after all. Oh, and by the way, there's a huge natural gas pipeline that runs directly underneath, further limiting the usable acreage, not to mention the obvious safety concerns. When presented with these criticisms in June, council members Odegaard and McCarthy both raised these legitimate concerns, and also proposed alternative parcels to replace Schultz Meadows so that the RFP could move forward this year. However, at that meeting, the majority of council decided the RFP was too important and voted to move forward as is. Finally, at a special meeting in July, initiated by a citizen's petition, council was able to get a full spectrum of alternatives, and reluctantly dropped Schultz Meadows from the RFP, replacing it with a parcel at the corner of Butler and Lone Tree known as the Eldon parcel. Councilmember Overton rationalized that with so much opposition to Schultz Meadows, the community would continue to challenge its development and put the whole plan and the council's goal in jeopardy, which led to our mayor's now famous outburst.
Because I think if we were to say, leave that parcel in, you're going to have 3 to 4 months of an absolute bitter discussion that will pit groups against groups, people against folks, and then at the end of the day, we're going to say, we're not accepting the RFP because it's too controversial of a piece and it taints all of the parcels.
And I want to say, quite frankly, as somebody who is a third generation with a daughter who's fourth generation, I'm actually really disappointed right now in our community. I'm very disappointed in our community. But I think that this is at least a start to move forward. I want to make sure that staff, you guys can actually get this thing rolling and get something productive out there. But I just want to say that we have preserved over 3,000 acres of open space in this community. And we have not created any affordable housing for the people who live in this community. And that is extremely disappointing.
We were told during the election last year that these council members would base their decisions on community input. Clearly, on some issues, that is not the case. We were also told during the election, explicitly, that the Schultz Meadows parcel was not adequate for affordable housing, and that the community and certain candidates preferred the Eldon parcel.
There was a piece of property, city-owned property, and it was over by REI. And that piece of property was slated for affordable housing because it was in a beautiful area. Buses came by, shopping right there, everything within walking distance. The community college, NAU, all right there. And when the community was asked, what do you want done with this? They said, please, no more gas stations.
The piece of property that we were just talking about is right here at the corner of Lone Tree and Butler. I voted against us selling that. The community was clear about what they wanted to see and what they didn't want to see on that property, and the city council decided to put it out to RFP without any restrictions on it. Now here's why I voted against it. I want us to really consider this. This property is earmarked for affordable housing. It's on the corner of Lone Tree and Butler. It is 5 blocks from a major university, half a mile from a community college, on 3 major bus lines, and within walking distance of over 50 employers here in the city. What better place for affordable housing than that? If you're really talking about cutting expenses and cutting costs and helping people get out of poverty. Instead, we're going to take that money, we're going to sell the property, we're going to take the money, and we might get some units elsewhere. The property that they're talking about building those units, far from, there's a bus line kind of nearby. There aren't any employers, so they're going to have to figure out how to get there. It's definitely not the same situation that we would have had here.
So now, why would the mayor and others in town be so disappointed with this outcome? Is it because they just want to achieve an ideological goal on paper and they don't care how? Right now, we're being told that preventing tiny Schultz Meadows from being developed into affordable housing is protecting privilege, maintaining a status quo, segregating affordable housing into certain neighborhoods, and just downright selfish because we're choosing flowers over people. And you know what? I could get with that sentiment. I really could. But there's a really big piece missing in this puzzle. A really, really, really big piece. In 2016, all of these same community members, including some council members and the mayor, and those affiliated with nonprofits that serve our most disadvantaged neighbors, all wholeheartedly supported Prop 413, a citizens' initiative to designate over 300 acres of city-owned land as, you guessed it, open space, protected from development of any kind. The initiative was spearheaded by Councilmember Barretts and enthusiastically endorsed by Coral Evans, Jim McCarthy, and Jamie Whelan, and was instigated by the fear that the land could be sold to private development and that no beautiful open space would remain on our beloved McMillan Mesa. Only once was a representative from the Greater Buffalo Park Advocacy Group challenged on their omission of the possibility of affordable housing being developed on McMillan Mesa. And here's their lame excuse.
The only concerns I've heard about the proposition are certain voices that really are advocating for affordable housing.
Yes.
And saw that land as potential for affordable housing. And I know there's kind of a tension growing in the community between, house prices, open space, and how to make this a livable community. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that issue and what...
There's got to be more affordable housing, but I don't think McMillan Mesa is quite the place to do that. I really can't foresee a builder building affordable housing on McMillan Mesa. I foresee something much larger, something much bigger. I would be surprised if that was any builder's idea of a good investment.
Last year, there was no affordable housing crisis. Open space was more important. And now that certain folks are in power, there is definitely a crisis, and a way for certain people to take credit for good intentions while disparaging anyone who opposes them, even if it's a majority of the community.
It's basically an argument that says, yes, we need affordable housing, but not near me. I hope people recognize that is an argument based on fear that plays on stereotypes of our most vulnerable populations.
Even with a $10 an hour minimum wage, you get priced out here in Flagstaff. We need more affordable housing. We don't know how many homeless single moms and kids, how many young families, working people, disabled people are stuck living friend to friend, breaking up their kids among several addresses.
I'm also concerned that by converting this space to open space would really set a precedent for other areas of Flagstaff. I mean, what's to stop people from saying, no, I don't want housing, I want a park where the City Works Park is, or something like that.
When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression.
In terms of these feelings, if we wait, the feelings that might be evoked are, Mommy, I'm hungry. Mommy, I'd like a place to live. Now. I don't want to wait a year, 2 years, 5 years. I want a place to live now.
I can't think of a neighborhood that hasn't taken away a view from someone else or taken away an amazing natural resource from someone else. We take it away to build our community, and our community is what creates this place.
Last month I had a single mom with 3 kids. She's a kindergarten teacher at a local charter school. Her rent was raised $600 with 30 days notice. She now lives in her parents' basement with her 3 children in 1 bedroom. Last week there was a disabled mom living in a motel. Last night a single dad living in a tent outside of Kachina with his 1-year-old baby looking for housing.
Boy, we sure need to come together as a community and stop this, I don't want to say white privilege, but, it kind of is.
I really am trying to figure out how we got to this standpoint where we decided that maybe the people weren't necessarily on equal footing. And maybe that's not what we've decided, but to be honest with you, the conversation that this community is having right now, it's not good. It's really not.
The argument of, I'm for affordable housing, but was perfectly fine not even a year ago. Nobody was talking about an affordable housing crisis. Nobody was called selfish for wanting to see deer in Buffalo Park or walk the Arizona Trail for the views of the peaks. And certainly no one was accused of white privilege for keeping affordable housing off McMillan Mesa. I don't know about you, but if my family was camping in the woods, or living in my mother's basement, again, or on the wait list for any reason, I'd be a little confused by these people who say they want to help me out when they threw up a huge obstacle to any increase in the inventory of affordable housing just a year ago.
And it is important for me to tell all of you that I spent 1 year of my life, 365 days, working on Proposition 413 day and night. And I was on a mission because I was scared that the prior council, was just poised to sell off some of that land that I thought was very valuable because it's a large intact parcel. I really think the best way to move forward in ensuring that this is open space is to do a voter initiative. And it's a lot of work, and the easy thing to do is to ask council to do it. But that way you'll really know in this community who supports it, because all of the voters will get a chance.
Right now, there's members of our community who are taking Celia's advice and starting a voter initiative to preserve Schultz Meadows as open space. And I commend them for that, and I would support that initiative. But I think we need another initiative. We got to take back the land in Buffalo Park and develop it as affordable housing to put a serious dent in that wait list. I'm going down to City Hall, and I'm going to pull papers right now. Wow, there's not a whole lot of parking around here. Oh, good, there's a spot. Oh, what a beautiful day. Oh, what a beautiful day. Wait, what? What the